Terraria is an example of a game that nails almost every feature it contains, and I absolutely love it. There are very few things that this game gets wrong, and I think that's one of the main reasons it has sold over 40 million copies. I believe the game is nearly flawless, and today I'd like to discuss some of the most common arguments levied against Terraria. Mainly that the game's progression is awful, that it's not a sandbox game, and that the game cannot be beaten without a wiki. All of these claims are false, and today I'd like to delve into why, as well as explain as each feature being called out as actually being really well done. The point of this video is not to poke fun at or belittle anyone who feels this way about Terraria, but to instead try and change the perception they may have. If you think that Terraria isn't a sandbox game, doesn't have good progression, or requires a wiki to play it, then I implore you go into this video with an open mind and approach it with good faith. That being said, the game isn't perfect, and I'll be sure to point out issues as I go, particularly around the progression of the game, as I feel it's the point that needs the most work. If you've come to this video expecting me to do nothing but hype up Terraria, I'm sorry, but this video is riddled with nuance. If you've come to this video because you hate Terraria and think it's bad, you're probably not going to like this video either. Just be cognizant of these biases as you watch. I understand this video will likely upset lots of people, and I'm ready to face the consequences of that. For the first time in a long time, I'll be having someone other than myself look over this script. This is done so that I can come off as non-biased and objective as possible. While I fully admit that I love this game, I'd like to think that I can talk about it in a relatively objective manner. With that in mind, my wonderful script editor and girlfriend Emily will be editing this script, so if my writing suddenly sounds a lot better, you know why. With that said, let's get into why Terraria's progression is supposedly so awful. Part 1. If not a sandbox, then what? There was a claim that I have heard many times. This claim is demonstrably false. I think people who make this claim have either not spent that much time thinking about what it means or haven't considered backing it up with anything in particular. That claim, of course, is that Donald Trump is a good president. Whoa, I'm kidding! Settle down, it's a joke. Love ya, be safe. In all seriousness, claiming that Terraria is not a sandbox game is kind of like claiming that a square is not a rectangle. Sure, a square has its own unique characteristics, mainly that all four sides are equal, but it's got those four sides nonetheless. Similarly, though a sandbox game can generally be defined as a game where players can do whatever they want within a digital playground of sorts, sandbox games themselves are made in many different ways. Gary's Mod is a sandbox game. Minecraft is a sandbox game. Terraria is a sandbox game. While the game like Minecraft focuses heavily on building, it still has elements of combat and engineering. Conversely, Terraria focuses on combat and has elements of building and elements of engineering. There is no objectively correct way to make a sandbox game. In fact, arguing that there is an objectively correct way to do so is counter to everything that makes a sandbox game a sandbox game. It's arguing against the spirit of sandbox games. If we're supposed to have player freedom in these sandbox games, then it should go without saying that there should be some development freedom as well. The most common argument I hear within this category is that Terraria is an action-adventure game, not a sandbox game. This is probably the weirdest argument that I've ever heard. If you go onto any online store, Minecraft will show up under the action-adventure category. Most online stores don't have a sandbox games section, but if they did, I guarantee you'd see games like Vintage Story, Minecraft, Hytale, and yes, Terraria would all fall under that same category. Sandbox games are defined by their extreme level of player freedom. Terraria obviously provides the player a great amount of freedom. I think some people forget just how much you can build and create in Terraria despite the lack of a third dimension. Terraria players have a bad habit of doing the bare minimum, I'm guilty, for their houses of just making ugly boxes, which I believe has led some people to believe that it's hard to be creative in Terraria. That simply couldn't be further from the truth. As with any game, being creative in Terraria just takes a bit of thought and time. You can take breaks from the combat and progression to focus on building a wonderful town for your NPCs or ensuring that their happiness is maxed out. In fact, making sure your NPCs are happy has a tangible reward for you in the form of a teleport hub that can whisk you across the world in an instant. To demonstrate the level of freedom the game offers, let me walk you through the opening moments of any given playthrough. This, of course, varies with the player's skill, intentions, and time playing the game. All of these factors should be taken into account when discussing the sandbox elements of the game. We open in a forest, surrounded by trees with a hill on either side. These hills separate us from the larger world. Beyond these two hills are unknown, but here in the center, we have relative peace. Chopping down trees affords us our first elements of progression, crafting. We can craft a workbench with wood and then create things like wooden armor or a wooden bow. Stone is found everywhere beneath our feet and can be used to make basic arrows. If we go into the hills caves, we might find a chest with a fun magic wand that shoots fireballs, or even a small staff to summon our own pet finch. These are the first glimpses of Terraria's 4 main playstyles. Right off the bat, depending on what is around you, you can choose multiple ways to play the game. You can stick to melee because it's simple, or you can try your hand at magic, or maybe a mix of both, using magic for main attacks and melee when the enemies get too close. Then there's the building. You can spend almost no time working on progression and instead focus on building a really nice house for your NPCs to live in. Using the wood and stone around us, we can create a simple house with a little stone floor. If we take the time to craft a furnace, we can turn those stone blocks into gray bricks, or even use clay found underground to make a brick house. Right off the bat, players are given multiple options when it comes to building. You could focus on making a pretty house, or making wooden armor, or finding ores. You could even choose to leave the forest and find biomes beyond for you to settle in. In this playthrough in particular, the one I did for this video, I went straight to the corruption to grab myself some ebon wood. This wood is stronger than normal wood and functions as a better material for weapons and armor than the normal wood. This gives me a slight edge over the monsters until I can find a more reasonable set of armor and gear. You might choose to head straight for a desert and obtain the cactus sword and the cactus pickaxe. The copper tools we start with have one fatal flaw. They have -1 range. A cactus pickaxe offers the same speed as a copper pickaxe, but with +1 range, making it an easy choice for players who plan to get digging. But some people might just want to fish. That's a great option too. You can make a simple fishing rod, catch some critters for bait, and start fishing. All of this can be done within the first few hours of gameplay. Hell, you can abandon the forest altogether and choose to live in a different biome, like I said earlier. It's entirely up to you. You can live in a desert, you can live in the snow, that's your choice. Just like any other sandbox game, you are given complete freedom to tackle the world how you'd like to. I'd also like to clear up another misconception people have about the game. People claim that it has an ending or an end to its progression. 2 important notes. First, all games have an end to their progression. That's kind of a given. There is no such thing as an infinite game. They're all going to end at some point. And second, Terraria has no ending. It has a final boss, sure, but the progression doesn't stop there. There's tons of things to craft after that final boss using the ores that it drops. Minecraft, a game commonly compared to Terraria as an example of a real sandbox game, has an actual ending with a whole credits sequence. Yet there's plenty to do after those credits roll. A final boss does not define a sandbox. A sandbox can have a linear progression. This is something that Terraria happens to excel at. That linear progression, which we will touch on in a bit, in an open world is what makes the game so special. Terraria focuses on its progression a lot, allowing players to dive quite deeply into its mechanics. The game is as wide as an ocean and as deep as one too. You can spend hours crafting little bits of equipment or exploring the depths of your world looking for that special building material you just have to have. You can find granite, marble, underground deserts, a weird shimmer thing, and an actually massive dungeon, and literally hell. Even the oceans, which are just massive pools of water, have a chance to house extremely large caves which go deep into the world. Why? Why not? This sort of randomized experience is the core of Terraria's open world. You're meant to create worlds again and again to see what you can discover with each random seed. You can try your hand at different difficulty levels as well. There's a classic mode, which I played for the footage of this video, but I typically play on expert mode. There's also master mode, a super hard version of the game designed to test the player's mastery. Terraria offers endless possibilities for anyone, whether it be newcomers or advanced players alike. When people say Terraria isn't a sandbox game, it's typically done so in comparison to a game like Minecraft. To be clear, Minecraft has a more linear progression than Terraria. I mean, you literally just mine stuff to craft more stuff, to mine more stuff and craft more stuff. And then you do that like 5 times and you have the best stuff in the game. It's really not that hard. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing either, that works well for Minecraft. You could argue that progression isn't the main point of Minecraft, and I'd say you're correct, but Terraria focuses on it more, there's no doubt about that. That doesn't mean that either one isn't a sandbox game because it focuses on something that falls outside your narrow definition. But I digress. Speaking of progression, let's talk about how Terraria nails its progression. Part 2. Limiting progression is a good thing. Sandbox games are defined by the level of freedom they afford players. However, there's something I need you all to take into consideration. Player freedom is most satisfying when put up against a level of limitation. Linear progression in an otherwise open game is an effective way of allowing players to feel like their journey in the open world is all that more meaningful. You can't appreciate the light without the dark, that type of thing. There is a point A to a point B, and you can view that linear progress as it's happening. Just because it has an end or it isn't open doesn't make it inherently bad. It also doesn't make it inherently good. Rather, if done properly, it can be good. Overall, though, I'd argue a limited level of progression in an open world is a good thing, as it gives players something to work toward rather than just letting them flail about aimlessly. Games have recognized this since the inception of open worlds. Even early Elder Scrolls games feature skills that you level up in a linear fashion. Skyrim doesn't let you level up every skill at any point instantly, you have to work toward that. It would kill the progression of the game. Similarly, Minecraft doesn't let you spawn in netherite gear unless you want to cheat and do so. What I'm trying to convey here is that the supposed limited nature of Terraria's progression is handled well, and I don't think it's detrimental to the core feeling of the game. Let's start with the 4 main classes. Classes in Terraria refer to a certain playstyle. In other games, perhaps like Vintage Story, you pick a class at the start of the game, and then it alters some kind of stats you have while you play the game. In Terraria, you choose your class long after you start, and you can change your class by simply switching weapons, armor, and gear. Most players start with melee, as it is by far the most approachable class and is frankly given the best gear due to the player's proximity to enemies. Then there is ranged, which focuses on bows, crossbows, and guns. They are given extended range but are limited by ammo consumption and slightly weaker armor. Magic users have very powerful weapons but are limited by their mana usage, though they can make various potions to kind of regenerate their mana. Additionally, enemies killed with magic weapons sometimes drop these little star things that refill the mana on their own. And finally, there is Summoner, which focuses on having little minions that do the fighting for you. Their secondary weapon is a whip, which when used causes the minions to target the enemy you're whipping. All 4 of these playstyles are fun and interesting in their own way. I typically main melee just because that's what I've always done, but I have tried my hand at magic here and there and just found it to be really rewarding and fun. Each of these classes rewards players for building themselves up along a particular path. As stated before, players can switch their class by simply changing their armor and weapons as they're going. There is no commitment here. Sure, there's a linear progression in the making of tools and whatnot, but it's not like you're forced to play melee the entire time. You could switch over at any time. Hi, Future Garrett here. I realized something that I failed to mention are that there are differences within these classes. For example, melee might just sound like it's swords and that's about it, but really there's spears, there's flails, there's even yo-yos that are all viable weapons. Ranged, of course, has bows and guns that offer different playstyles for different players. I think pointing this out is important because many of Terraria's detractors point out the class system as though to say it limits people to playing in one of 4 ways, and that's not really the case. Within those 4 classes, there is a lot of overlap and unique branches. For a long time, the most powerful weapon in the game was a yo-yo. A fucking yo-yo. There's just a lot you can do within each class, and I think that's important to mention. Anyway, back to your regularly scheduled me. Knowing this, Terraria is not limited by this class system. The focus on combat isn't really a limiting factor either. Just like any other sandbox game, Terraria invests in exploration and adventure too. You'd be hard-pressed to tell me that a game like Minecraft doesn't reward exploration when structures have loot in them. Exploration is key to any open world, and Terraria is no different. Its world is filled with little secrets to find, and that makes the progression all the more sweeter. Finding any structure is almost always bound to give you something that you can use, or sell, or even hoard like a madman. Hardly anything found in a ruin or dungeon is considered clutter. Someone will have a use for it. Take, for example, something you'd find in any underground ruin: Hermes boots. These essentially allow the player to sprint. This is obviously useful in combat because you can more easily dodge enemies, but outside of combat it allows quicker traversal of the world, which is something almost every player will love. And that brings me to equipment. Beyond the armor and tools you have, there's also dozens of pieces of gear that you can wear to add abilities or buff your existing ones. There's all kinds of items such as wings, double jump, boots that make you run faster, or claws that make you scale walls. But beyond movement, there's items that simply upgrade a certain type of damage, items that tell you how many enemies are around or how deep in the world you are, or prevent you from taking any fall damage or damage from fire, and so much more. On top of this, so many of these things can be combined into a single item in the Tinkerer's Workstation, which you can get fairly early on in the progression. This system of upgrading items and discovering which gear suits your playstyle is one of my favorite parts of Terraria. But my favorite part of all of this is that there are a couple of items that are just insane to craft. They take dozens of pieces of gear to combine them to sort of like make these mega items. The Ankh shield and the cell phone are the two best examples of this. You can spend dozens of hours, maybe even hundreds, trying to get these items, and it will just keep going and going until you finally get it, and then you are given some of the best satisfaction of any sandbox game. And for other sandbox games, I don't think they need anything this deep. Like, sure, I think Minecraft could take a few notes from Terraria, at least in terms of structures and loot, but the simplicity of Minecraft is what makes it so great, and a lot of people seem to forget that. But Minecraft aside, you'd have a hard time convincing me that the progression of Terraria is bad because it's limited, or linear, or that there are super mega complicated items, or that it focuses on combat, because that's simply not the case. It's not bad, you just don't like it as much, and that's okay. There are those, though, who claim that the progression is not only bad, but bad because the game is impossible to beat without a wiki or having prior knowledge. This is, again, demonstrably false. God, I love that word. It's a great word. There's a great YouTuber I recommend all of you watch called Thorbin. Thorbin has, at least twice now, made his friends play through Terraria with no help from him or from the wiki. The series of videos is an excellent showcase of why people are wrong when they claim the game is impossible, but I'd like to discuss it in my own way. Part 3. The game is impossible to beat without a wiki. Before we get into part 3, I'd like to take a moment to talk about today's sponsor, my own Minecraft server. Elysium Miles is a Minecraft server that aims to take the vanilla Minecraft experience and enhance it. We call this philosophy Vanilla Plus, and it's what drives the server. The whole server takes place in a handmade floating island world with custom biomes, ruins, towns, and NPCs. We have a unique health and armor system as well as unique tool progression that isn't present in vanilla Minecraft. And if survival mode isn't your thing, we do offer a custom PvP world with kit-based PvP arenas as well as Battle Royale and other little game modes. If you're interested in that, consider checking out the link to the Discord server to become whitelisted today. It's in the description, you'll find it. I believe in you. Anyway, back to Terraria. I'd like to open, once again, by saying that the premise of this statement is faulty at its core. As I've said, Terraria, like any other sandbox game, is not a game to be beaten or completed. I think what people mean to say is that the game is simply impossible to figure out without a wiki or a guide. Well, funnily enough, the game has a built-in guide that eliminates the need for any outside help. I will die on this hill when I say that the guide, even prior to 1.4.5, is one of the greatest tutorials in any video game history. The guide not only gives you hints on what to do next or where to go, but by asking him for crafting advice and then smacking any item into that UI, he can tell you how to make every single possible crafting recipe with said item. Not sure what to do with that cool star that fell from the ground? Give it to the guide, he'll show you. Got a new ore from a meteor? Give it to the guide, he'll show you what to do with it. This single NPC is the reason the game goes from actually impossible to extremely intuitive. If at any point a player has a question about something that they should be doing, they can walk up to the guide and ask for help. There is no need for a wiki. The guide is almost the entire wiki put into a video gamey kind of form. For this video, I decided I would ask my girlfriend to play the game without any sort of help from the outside. I was there solely to watch and record her progress in the world. I did not tell her a single thing. She's my little guinea pig for my experiment. It is worth noting that Emily plays on a laptop without a mouse, so her controls are a bit wonky. Hopefully that explains any of the weird movements she may be making in this footage. Prior to playing, she had a total playtime of 58 minutes, so in those 58 minutes, I guarantee you she mostly screwed around making her character and probably picked mushrooms. That sounds like my girlfriend. She has no knowledge of the game and is going in about as blind as one can be. There are a couple rules I've made for this experiment. I am not to help her unless absolutely necessary. I can watch, do my own thing, but I can't tell her what to do next or how to do anything in particular. The only time I broke this rule was when it came to walls. Terraria, for all the good that it does not do a good job explaining the differences between these walls on the side of the house and the walls in the background of a house. Emily was very confused as to how her house was missing a wall when she clearly had built all of the walls and had done everything else right. For some of you, I imagine an example like this would be perfect. A brand new player can't even figure out how to properly make a house. This game is just that bad at teaching new players what to do and where to go. And yes, I'll agree with you on this one. This is an example of the game falling a bit short. However, when crafting, it is worth noting that the game shows you background walls in the menu. It's very easy for a player to see that the connection between the dots of wooden wall and make sure your house has walls. I will also note that this is probably the only time where Emily became confused on what to do next. For the rest of the time, she was able to ask the guide questions and figure out what to do and where to go. For the purpose of this video, I wanted her to figure out how to get to the game's first boss fight, the Eye of Cthulhu. Sorry, King Slime. Either it will be summoned organically through, her getting health and armor or whatever triggers it spawning, or by her using demon lenses as an altar. Throughout this process, she did a really good job of mining, moving around and getting a hold of the world and the whack-ass controls she has to use on a MacBook. Neither Emily or myself had the time to do a thorough playthrough or conduct a massive experiment for the purposes of this video, but with the little experiment that I've been able to conduct, I'd say she did a great job of learning the game, and the game did a great job of teaching her what to do next. I think people get the impression that the game is impossible without a guide because of shit like this. This is one of maybe 2 examples that I talked about earlier where crafting is a bit overblown. This is an endgame item that isn't meant to be crafted by everyone. Not everyone needs this kind of thing. It's not even really necessary for progression. It's mostly one of those like, haha, look what I got kind of item that happens to be extremely powerful. I would say it's very similar to like beacons in Minecraft. They aren't necessarily at all, but they are extremely useful and it's meant to be shown off more than anything else. Most items in this game are not this complicated. Most can be crafted from combining 1 or 2 other items, and usually those things are found in chests or dropped from enemies. Terraria isn't really all that complicated when you look at it broadly, but when you cherry pick and look at a couple of examples, then you could start to push this narrative that the game is overly complicated. Terraria is not impossible without a wiki. Sure, a wiki can definitely be helpful for anyone wanting to 100% the game or really wanting to dive deep into it, but I'd argue that using a wiki kills a lot of the excitement you get from exploring and discovering parts of the world on your own. There is a certain magic in finding that extra special item or extra special piece of gear that could be spoiled by a wiki. I will go as far as to argue that new players should actively avoid the wiki unless absolutely necessary. Play the game blind, enjoy the world and discoveries because you only get to enjoy that first time discovery once. While it's still a joy for me to make a new world and play the game after a decade or more of playing it, there's nothing more special in a sandbox game than finding something new for the very first time. And I suppose that the moral of today's video is that while many may claim that Terraria is impossible without a guide or that it's not a real sandbox game, I think these claims are not only wrong, but a bit foolish. Terraria is a sandbox game, and a great one. There's a reason it's one of the best-selling video games of all time. That reason might have something to do with the incredible sense of progression players feel and the sheer replayability that the game offers. There's always something new and unique to find, and always some new way to play the game that you haven't tried before. Terraria is not only a jack of all trades, but it is a master as well. It is one of the best indie games in the market, and for as cheap as it is, you'll be getting plenty of time out of it. I cannot recommend this game enough. Anyway, that's all for today's video. If you liked it, be sure to give the video a like and maybe consider subscribing to the channel. I make long-form videos as well as live stream fairly often. And as a final note, I'd like to thank all of you for sticking around with me through 2025. I know that I'm dating this video now, but whatever, who cares? But anyway, if it's your first time watching, then welcome. I don't make content on Terraria very often, but maybe that'll change, I don't know. I do talk about plenty of other games though, like Vintage Story and Minecraft, and I'll be making content on Hytale once that is out. If you'd like to support me directly, consider hopping on a live stream and donating a super chat, or better yet, consider becoming a member for as little as $3 a month. You get access to all of my videos early, access to some members exclusive videos, as well as access to all of my live stream VODs. Anyway, remember to check out the links in the description for my Minecraft server, and I'll see you guys all in the next episode. Bye bye!